What is up guys, I'm Uriza. This story is all about what if Naruto became a villain. Naruto becomes the villain everyone in the village always thought he would be. Only one person will risk everything to try and redeem him. His best and most loyal friend, Uchiha Sasuke. Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 40, The Very Best Offer. The Tower of Sound was as far as I could see an exact copy of the Tower of Fire. Except that it's 50 feet higher, Naruto said. I am not surprised, Sarutobi said. He always wanted to outdo everything that came before him. Naruto and Tsunade both nodded at that. In any case the floor plan is exactly the same, Naruto said. Why don't you and Tsunade use the conference room on the second floor? Whenever you're done come up to my office and we can talk. You don't object to my being alone with Tsunade? Sarutobi asked. Nope, I don't think you plan to overpower her and I'm not afraid she'll turn on me. He sent Sarutobi an amused grin. Oh, and you should know every room in the tower is monitored except for my offices. If you want real privacy you can use a ceiling jutsu, I don't mind. Naruto and his bodyguards headed down the corridor leaving Sarutobi and Tsunade on their own. Sarutobi watched him depart with sad eyes. I always suspected he would make a great leader someday. Does seeing you were right make you happy or sad? Tsunade asked. Let's go to the conference room so that we can sit down and talk. Tsunade noted that he had avoided the question, but did not press him on it. In the conference room Sarutobi performed a series of hand signs to activate a ceiling jutsu that would interrupt in electronic monitoring devices and block any scrying jutsus. The secretary who was looking through an ordinary peephole and listening was not affected. Tsunade took a seat across from him at the table and spoke first. I honestly don't know what you think you're playing at, old man. No matter what you say my answer is going to be no. Tsunade, he lowered himself into his chair. The long journey had left him stiff and sore. I am much too old for this, he thought. Sadly there was no one else who could perform this particular task. I know that you feel the village robbed you of those you loved most, but I beg you to remember all the ordinary and decent folk of Konoha. Remember the place that was home to you and was the life's achievement of your grandfather and granduncle. I know the losses of Nawaki and Dan were tragic, but a ninja village cannot survive unless its ninja are ready to make the sacrifices necessary to protect it and its people. Nawaki and Dan were both leaf shinobi and they understood this and were ready to make that sacrifice. Don't talk lightly of sacrifice, old man, it really pisses me off. Tsunade said angrily. My grandfather, my granduncle, my little brother, the man I loved, and the whole Senju clan are gone. All for what? So that Konoha can exist and make money by killing and hurting people? What did they die for exactly? So that Fire Country could have its own ninja village. She shook her head violently. Some things just aren't worth the price. You did not always feel that way, Sarutobi reminded her gently. There was a time when you believed in the village and what it stood for, when you fought to protect it. You mean back when I was young and naive? She shook her head. These are the same arguments you used when I first left. They didn't work then, what makes you think they would work now? The situation now is fundamentally different from what it was then, Sarutobi told her. Back when you originally left it was to wander and escape your memories. You were turning your back not only on Konoha, but also on the entire ninja world. That is no longer the case. By abandoning your home village and serving Oto and its Otokage you have betrayed Konoha. She shrugged. If you want to place me on the missing nin list feel free. Just make sure any hunter nins you send after have their wills in order. Tsunade, can you at least explain to me how you can justify this decision? When you originally left it was because you rejected the philosophy of shinobi and of the villages. How can you resent Konoha but serve Oto? Do you truly believe them to be somehow better? No, she said flatly. I am long past seeing anything noble in the work of the villages. She shut her eyes for an instant and allowed a small shudder to pass through her. I will even admit to you that serving Naruto sickens me at times. I don't know what he was like before, but he reminds me of Orochimaru. Clever, patient, and utterly ruthless about getting what he wants. Do you remember when he spoke of wearing two faces? The face you saw today with the villagers was genuine, he really does want to protect Oto and its people. But he had another face he doesn't let the world see. When I look at that face I can well believe he is the Kyuubi. There's a part of him that really enjoys killing and hurting people. That part of him truly is a monster. How can you serve him then? Sarutobi asked. He just did not understand it. My reasons are selfish, she answered. He has promised me something I want in exchange for my services and my loyalty. If this is about his paying your debts. You think I would get involved with this for money? She asked with a sneer. Then what is it he is offering you? Danzo assures me Konoha will offer you anything if you will return to your old home. Sadly she shook her head. I'm sorry old man, but it's not something that you have to offer up. What is it then? I'd rather not say. Sarutobi gave a weary sigh. Tsunade, please reconsider. Even when we disagreed I never had anything but the highest respect for you and for your beliefs. You told me once that the village's goal should be to preserve life, not take it. You battled against me to create a medical corps because you wanted to make healing and saving our ninja a priority even if it meant weakening the village's striking power. You have always believed in saving lives. You must know the sorts of things that are happening in the research facilities of Rice Country. If you serve Naruto then you are supporting those abominations. Can you accept being a part of that? She actually felt relief at the fact he did not know just how deeply involved she was in those experiments. As an expert medic nin she had been given charge of conducting experiments using chakra and jutsus. It sickened her, but she still conducted the experiments and then neatly wrote down the results. She told herself they would have happened if she were not there anyway. She told herself she had to do it for Nawaki and Dan, that returning them to life justified any price. I know, but I can accept it. Sarutobi noticed as she went through the motions of dry washing her hands. He didn't think she was even aware she was doing it. Ninja were trained to give no sign of what they were feeling. For a ninja of her ability to do such a thing was clear sign that whatever she was doing was weighing heavily on her. Can you really accept being a part of all this? Sure, it doesn't bother me at all. She again acted as though washing her hands. What will you do if he chooses to attack us? Sarutobi asked in a hushed voice. The day he abandoned the village he killed many innocent people blowing up various buildings. He has never made any secret of the fact he longs for vengeance against not only me but against all of Konoha. What will you do if he decides to march out against us? Will you stand by and do nothing? Will you fight at his side and kill helpless women and children? I will do whatever he tells me to, she answered looking very unhappy. I wouldn't like it old man, but I've decided to do anything I have to get what he's promised me. Then it would appear Naruto is not the only one who has taken after Orochimaru. He looked and sounded like a disappointed father. She squirmed in her seat and felt like a 12-year-old again. That's a low blow old man. Perhaps, but it seems accurate to me. Tiredly he pushed his seat back and stood. Thank you for talking with me Tsunade. I think I will go and talk to Naruto now. Out in the countryside of Rice 4 figures in black robes and red clouds moved about in the darkness. One of them looked out at land with the Sharingan and calmly wondered what he would say to his father and other relatives when he met them in the land of the dead. I thought you would like to know, the ninja in the Umbu mask said to Kakashi. He nodded his head and gave a false smile. Thank you, I do appreciate it. The Umbu waved a hand in acknowledgement and was gone. Sakura, he said beneath his breath. I asked you not to do anything stupid. Disappearing from the village definitely counts. When the door to his office opened, Naruto waved Sarutobi over to the chair in front of his desk. Offering the former Hokage a seat was a kind gesture on Naruto's part, but he did not rise to his feet as he would have for an equal. As soon as Sarutobi had seated himself, Naruto began with a smirk. This kind of brings back memories, doesn't it? You and me in a Kage's office? Though the roles are reversed, of course. As I recall, when you were in my office it was usually because you were in some sort of trouble. Naruto's smile had a little bit of cruelty to it as he replied. Or else I was there to beg for some favor. That is why you're here now, isn't it? To beg? Go ahead, I think I'd really enjoy hearing it. I am not here to beg Naruto, Sarutobi spoke with a dignified tone. I was sent here as a special envoy in hopes of establishing a dialogue with you and entering into negotiations. I know the official reason why you're here. He picked up the original message and waved it about. The fifth Hokage seeks an accommodation with the leader of Oto for a restoration of normal relations between the two villages. He spoke from memory without bothering to look at the message. That bastard Danzo doesn't even acknowledge me as a Kage. I am sure the slight was made unintentionally, Sarutobi replied smoothly. It was a blatant lie and they both knew it, but diplomacy often required blatant lies. By a return to normal relations I assume he's referring to the fact that we're technically at war with each other. Though you'd never know it, since the Leaf doesn't have the guts to do anything beyond send assassins after me. I decided that an actual invasion of Rice would have led to untold numbers of casualties and that restraint was called for. Given your actions in the village and at the Valley of the End, declaring war once Oto decided to shelter you was unavoidable. You didn't attack because you knew you'd lose, Naruto told him. You still wanted me dead, you just knew you couldn't win an actual war. That was not the case, Naruto, Sarutobi calmly replied. Many within the clans were screaming for an invasion to destroy you and Orochimaru both. Suna would have marched with us to avenge Orochimaru's murder of their Kazekage. Did you know that the Kazekage and Orochimaru were planning a sneak attack on Konoha? It was to take place during the finals of the Chunin exams. Sarutobi slowly nodded. If Naruto knew, then there was no reason to try and keep it secret. We'd had signs that something was in the air and that it might be an attack. We did not learn of the details until much later. Did you know that Gaara was the One-Tails Jinchuriki? The attack was supposed to start simultaneously with his transformation at the arena. Orochimaru called it off at the very last minute because I killed him and because he realized he would be up against the power of the Kyuubi. I saved Konoha because of what I did that day. He shouted at him. I saved all of you, and what was my thanks? To be betrayed by the one person I trusted the most. How could you do that to me when I trusted you? His fists came down, slamming into his desk. I should have been treated like a hero, damn it. Sarutobi was shocked as for the second time he witnessed Naruto completely losing his temper. Having survived countless attempts on his life and years as Orochimaru's apprentice, he'd expected he boy to have better emotional control. He did not allow any of these concerns to appear on his face. I did not know that at the time, Naruto, he answered easily. I never considered my actions to be any sort of betrayal of you. You must realize the effect of your releasing so much of the Kyuubi's chakra in the midst of the village in the most public manner possible. That couples with your brutal killings of both Gaara and Neji convinced many people that the Fox had gained control or at least influence over you and that we were all in danger. Had I not acted to curb their fears, I likely would have had the civilians and the shinobi calling for your death or imprisonment. Hearing Sarutobi talk so calmly and rationally only drove the point home to Naruto that he needed to calm down. A Kage didn't keep losing his temper like this. Seeing him again really wears on my nerves, it's like all the old wounds are getting reopened. He took a deep breath and forced himself to sit back and at least look relaxed. He lowered his head. I apologize for my rudeness, please forgive me. Of course. Naruto took another deep breath. You didn't know I'd saved Konoha. What you did know was that I'd won the Chunin selection exams and hadn't broken any of the rules. Gaara slaughtered 3 Rainin and crippled Rock Lee. Neji tried to kill Hinata and came way too close to doing it. Neither of them were punished. But like always, I was the only one who was made to suffer. You refused to promote me even though I'd earned it, and what was worse, you were going to leash me. You were going to seal away most of my power to make everyone else happy. Tell me, Sarutobi, can you name me one other ninja who was ever punished for being too strong? If you can name me just one, maybe I'll feel a little better about things. Sarutobi knew there was no such example available. From the moment a shinobi began to train, he was taught to become as strong as possible and to bend every effort towards that goal. I am very sorry, Naruto. The only thing I can tell you is that you were a special case. Tell me about it, he said with bitterness in his voice. What a shame special doesn't always equate to good. Naruto, I know I made mistakes. If it were possible to go back in time, I would do many things differently. I can only offer you my apologies and seek to learn from those mistakes. Sarutobi rose to his feet and gave the seated Naruto a formal bow. I am sorry, Naruto. Do you think you bending your back and speaking a few words makes any difference at all, old man? I can offer you nothing more, Naruto. How about your life? Naruto asked him. What would you do if I told you that if you cut your own throat open for me right here and now I'd make peace with Konoha? If my life would bring peace to my village, then I would gladly offer it to you. Naruto gave him a ghost of a smile. He hadn't expected any other answer. Forget it, your scrawny neck isn't worth near that much. You want to know the terms I'm willing to offer Konoha? Yes, that is the reason I am here. 2 words, unconditional surrender. Is that a joke, Naruto? Nope, he spoke sounding utterly serious. Have Danzo surrender unconditionally to me and offer me his place as Hokage. I'll hold the titles of both Otokage and Hokage and rule both villages from here. I'll send Tsunade there to act as my regent. All Leaf Nins and all civilian residents will be required to kneel before me and publicly swear allegiance to me. All ninja who refuse will be treated as missing nin and expelled from the village. All civilians who refuse will have their property confiscated and be expelled from the village. I'll treat all those who kneel and swear the same as I treat my people here. Those terms are completely unacceptable and I am authorized to reject them on behalf of the village. Fine then, those are the best terms you will ever get from me. If you reject them, there is nothing more to discuss. This is not how you negotiate, Naruto. It is when you have all the power, he replied. Just remember, I can crush the leaf like that if I want. He snapped his fingers. If you truly believe that, why have you not done so? You talked about Konoha not waging a real war, but Oto has not done so either. Naruto shrugged. I can be patient when I need to. When the day comes that I do decide to move, it won't be a war, it'll be a massacre. That's why you should accept my terms now. I'll only show mercy if you submit to me. If I have to conquer the place, I'll burn it to the ground. Sarutobi felt a chill fall over his heart. He did not doubt that Naruto believed what he was saying. Think about it for a few days and enjoy my hospitality, Naruto said, sounding like the cheerful, fun-loving boy he had been once. Very well, he said, and got to his feet. Even if there was little hope, he would try to get Naruto to soften his terms to something that might at least seem reasonable enough to pass on to the Hokage. Chapter 41, Welcome back. Sakura was chained down to the table, hands, feet, elbows, knees, hips, and neck. Except to turn her face, she would hardly be able to move. The seals were chalked into the floor and onto notes attached to her. The last time he'd seen her, she'd been 12, she was 18 now and a very attractive woman. She was dressed in traditional black ninja gear, except for the hood, which had been removed. Naruto noted she had let her hair grow long, he liked it. You and the guards can go. Haku bowed his head in obedience. Are you certain, Otokage-sama? While we're in Konoha, I'll be going by Hokage, and yes, I'm sure. There could be other assassins, Hokage-sama, you have many enemies here. That's true everywhere, Haku. It's fine, I can take care of myself. Hi, Hokage-sama. Haku bowed and led the guards out of the room. Naruto was dressed in orange and black robes that went all the way down to his ankles. His hood was up, there were black gloves on his hands, and a fox umbu mask covered his face. Naruto strolled to the side of the table to allow Sakura to look up at him without needing to strain. She looked up into his mask with those green eyes of hers, her mouth was a flat line. He gave her credit for appearing calm. Her scent was nothing but terror and sorrow. Naruto still thought her eyes were pretty, back in his academy days they were what had first drawn him to her. I have to tell you, Sakura-chan, black is not your color. Red suits you a lot better. Her lips remained sealed. Bet you wish you could just scream baka and punch like you used to, huh? I'd do a lot worse than punch you if I could. Naruto wagged a single finger at her. Shame on you, Sakura-chan. Is that any way to talk to your Hokage? You're not the Hokage. I'm pretty sure that I am, Sakura-chan. You don't become Hokage just because you say you are. No, Naruto agreed. You become Hokage when you conquer the village and they surrender to you. You haven't won yet. I believe in the will of fire. They'll find a way to stop you. Naruto tilted his head slightly. They? Who is they? Who do you think is going to stop me? Danzu is dead. The council is dead. The Umbu are dead. The clans are smashed. Half the Leaf Nins are dead. Who's left? As long as there's even one ninja who believes there'll be someone to fight you. Someone like you, I suppose. She glared up at him but didn't answer. I don't want to hurt your feelings, Sakura-chan. But if they're counting on you or someone like you to take me down, the village is screwed. Here, let me show you something. From one of the pockets of his robe Naruto pulled out a kunai. There was a sharp rise in the fierce and eyes locked on the knife. Underneath his mask Naruto grinned. He held his left hand out palm up, then slashed the kunai straight down towards it. Before the tip of the blade could touch his glove, that section of his hand was covered in red chakra. Naruto tried to stab himself in the forearm, the thigh, the belly, and even the chest. Each time the red chakra would pop out of his body to shield that section. I never turn off the Kyuubi's chakra. I have an absolute defense. Did you honestly think you could assassinate me? Itachi, Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Pain all failed and they were all S-ranked. Naruto stabbed up towards his throat as hard as he could. The red chakra again blocked it. I can't even kill me, Sakura. What chance would someone like you have? He threw the kunai away. Why did he even bother to still carry them? How many years had it been since he'd actually had to use one in combat? He supposed it was something done out of habit. He seemed to be doing a lot of things that didn't really have a point. Why was he bothering to call himself Hokage? It had been his dream for a long time, he'd wanted the village to acknowledge him. Well, they did. He'd had all the survivors, shinobi, and civilian, kneel and swear allegiance to him. His troops patrolled the streets and garrisoned Konoha now. This village was his, and he didn't need a stupid title to make it so. For just a moment Naruto thought about Sarutobi. He still didn't understand why the old man had died trying to protect him from Itachi. The third had betrayed him and died for him. Why? In the world of ninja you did not die defending your enemy. As much as he hated Sarutobi, he could not remember the old man without remembering all the times the Hokage had brought food or visited to tell him a story or just listened to him whine. Those small acts of kindness that had meant everything to a lonely orphan. Naruto couldn't make himself forget the reason he had loved the old man in the first place. Naruto could never think of the old Hokage without that mix of fondness, love, and bitter resentment. As silly as it was, Naruto suspected he wanted the title of Hokage as much for Sarutobi's memory as for himself. Every defense has a weakness, Sakura spoke. No one can be invulnerable all the time. The key is always to find the weak point and exploit it. Is that you talking or someone else? She snarled and tried to look fierce. Well, as fierce as a girl with pink hair can when she's chained down to a table. Your mouth moves and I swear I could hear Shikamaru's voice. Sakura did not respond. He survived the battle. Obviously, he was smart enough not to attack me when I had 8 tails. My men confirm that a jonin fitting his description was spotted afterwards. He wasn't one of the ninja who surrendered and swore though. Would you have let him live if he had? Naruto shrugged. No. Since I killed Jiraiya he's been the one leading Konoha's efforts against me. He's not a real threat like Jiraiya was, but there's no reason to let him live. He didn't abandon the village, did he? He's still in Konoha. I'll never tell you. You don't need to, the answer's written all over your face. You're worried about him because you know he's dangerous. Not really, I'm just thorough. You can do whatever you want to me but I won't betray him. No matter how much pain you inflict I'll never talk. Naruto gave a throaty laugh, it didn't sound completely human. People always say that before the torture sessions start, but never after. You wouldn't be any different Sakura, believe me. But I'm not going to. What would be the point? There's no way Shikamaru would have trusted you with his plans or location, and I don't enjoy torturing people, that was always Orochimaru's thing. I'm actually a very reasonable person. You're a monster. True, but that's beside the point. Naruto reached down with his right hand. Sakura flinched and shut her eyes. As his gloved fingers slowly went through her locks she gave a little whimper. It was hard to believe this was the same girl who had punched him through walls back in their school days. I always liked your hair, Sakura-chan. Even though he couldn't feel it, he let his finger run through her hair for a bit. If you want to beg me for mercy, now would be the time. Go ahead, tell me this isn't the real me and that deep down I'm a good man. Remind me about Team 7 and the good old days. Sakura forced her eyes open and looked up into his masked face. Do you remember our first real mission? That little priestess girl, Shizuku. Naruto's eyes widened and he pulled his hand back. I remember. You cried for her when she died. It was now Naruto's turn to be silent. It was the first time I really understood what it meant to be a ninja. The first time I ever saw people killed or saw someone interrogated. I saw you use your red chakra, though Sasuke, and I didn't know what it was. You ripped a man's heart out of his chest and you threatened to kill every single person in that village. In that moment I was scared of you. I'm sure it was quite a revelation, the clumsy idiot turning out to be a monster. I didn't think you were a monster, Naruto, not then. I was shocked at how powerful and ferocious you were, but what I remember just as clearly is you crying for that little girl when no one else would, not even her mother. I thought, this is what a ninja is supposed to be. We can do terrible things when we need to, but we can still be good people. We can still care. Naruto stared down into her green eyes with his red ones. Is this where you tell me it's not too late for me to change? We both know it's much too late. You betrayed the village, you murdered Sasuke, you've performed forbidden jutsus, and burned whole countries to the ground. You are drenched in blood, nothing you do could ever make you clean again. Well, I won't tell you you're wrong. It isn't making me feel real merciful though. After the things you've done I wouldn't expect mercy. I just wanted to remind you of your humanity, and of a time when you still cared about others. Tell me something, Naruto, is there anyone who still matters to you? Yes, but it was a short list. Hinata. Sakura's eyebrows jumped. But she's already dash. Don't, he growled. Don't say another word unless you want me to show you just how much a human body can endure. I only need you to be alive. She swallowed audibly. What are you going to do to me? It's funny how you brought up Shizuku, you're going to be a sacrifice, like she was. If it helps, at least your death will have meaning. Do you think that was a comfort to her when her mother killed her? Naruto reached down and picked up the kunai he'd discarded earlier. He didn't need it as a weapon these days, but it still had its uses. Maybe it did, but she wasn't a ninja. Remember the very first lesson Iruka ever taught us? Sakura nodded. Every ninja must be ready to kill or die for the sake of the village. Even though she had tried to kill him, Naruto didn't hate Sakura. Hatred had become his food. Hatred of the villagers, of Sarutobi, of Jiraiya, of Danzo, of Itachi, of Akatsuki, hatred of the whole damn world, sometimes. The constant need for revenge, to destroy the ones who'd betrayed him, had pushed him forward from one battle to the next. He couldn't even remember if there'd been a time when he wasn't filled with unlimited hate and rage. Maybe back when he was still young and dumb enough to believe the world could be fair. Sakura had somehow avoided his list. She'd been a brat to him in the academy, but he'd gotten over it during their short time together on Team 7. She'd surrendered and sworn like most of the other survivors. Naruto had planned to leave her alone. But she'd come into the tower and tried to kill him. You couldn't let that sort of thing go, it made a bad example for people. I'll give you a clean death, Sakura, no torture, and no unnecessary pain. Thank you. For the first time the fierce smell died down. What was coming from her now was resignation. She must have known from the moment she set out this was the likely outcome. A quick death was the most she could hope for. I'll even grant you one last act of kindness. When Sasuke and Kakashi came to meet me in secret, you betrayed them to Shikamaru, didn't you? She nodded as much as the chains about her neck allowed. I thought I was helping Sasuke, I knew you couldn't be trusted. You've always blamed yourself for what happened, haven't you? Yes, if I hadn't dash. It made no difference, Sakura. The second I agreed to the meeting I was planning to capture him. If you hadn't told Shikamaru it would have just made it easier for me. Really? Yep. She let out a breath and seemed to relax. Thank you, Naruto-kun. You're welcome, Sakura-chan. The runes and inscriptions and tags were already in place. He began Edo Tensei. The inscriptions began to glow and the various tags started to shake and flap. Naruto took the knife and cut Sakura's throat, right above where the chains held her in place. The blood squirted up and the sharp coppery and salty tang stung his senses. There were no last words or tears from Sakura, just a choking gurgle as the light exited her eyes. The tags wrapped themselves around the boy. Dust and ash materialized and covered Sakura's corpse, hiding it from view. The material shaped itself into a different form. Naruto watched patiently as the jutsu worked. The ash and dust thickened into a grayish skin. The face, chest, arms, legs, all transformed. Small cracks formed along the surface. Try as he might, Naruto couldn't make the new form perfect. There were always imperfections. The jutsu was called Impure World Reincarnation for a reason. Naruto was painfully aware of the limitations of this technique, and that it was not possible to truly restore the dead to life. Eventually the jutsu was complete. The eyes opened and someone stared up at him in confusion. Naruto gently patted his shoulder. Welcome back, Sasuke. Chapter 42, The Price. There was a crack that ran from just below Sasuke's left ear to his jawline. He was sure that there were other blemishes beneath the clothing Sasuke was wearing. Who are you? Sasuke's eyes darted about the room. The chains jangled as tried to free himself. I'm Naruto. The eyes snapped back and the mouth fell open. Where am I? What dash? You're feeling confused. That's normal, just give it a moment. Sasuke paused in his struggles. His eyes lost focus. Orochimaru, he was going to try and take over my body. Yes. So his jutsu failed? No, it didn't. What do you mean? Sasuke demanded. You died, more than 4 years ago. Sasuke's mouth went slack and his eyes widened. Then how dash? I brought you back with a forbidden jutsu called Edo Tensei. You're not truly alive anymore, Sasuke. You don't have a beating heart or blood flowing through your veins. You'll be able to remember things from your life, and you have a functioning chakra system. You'll be able to use jutsus. Is that why you brought me back? To use me as a tool. Naruto shook his head. You're here because I missed you. I just wanted my friend back. You're the one who killed me, Naruto. Orochimaru delivered the blow, but you captured me and gave me poison. Yeah, sorry about that. Sasuke glared at him. Would it help if I told you I kept the promise I made to you? We're in Konoha, inside the Tower of Fire. There were a lot of deaths when I took this place, but when they surrendered I did spare them. So you really did attack the village? That's right, Naruto growled. It was war and I ended it. The only reason I didn't burn this whole place to ash was because of the promise I made you. Are you expecting me to give you credit for that? Not really, though it would be nice. How could you do it? You grew up here. Konoha was your home. You knew the people who lived here. Yeah, I know them better than you ever did. Trust me, it made attacking this place easy. Don't think for a second Konoha was innocent. The village attacked me every way it could. After you attacked them first. Bullshit. I never asked to persecuted or treated like a monster. Even Sarutobi treated me that way in the end. And Jiraiya. Naruto abruptly cut off. He didn't want to remind himself. What? He committed war crimes, he did things that were worse than anything I've ever done. I don't believe you. That's fine, I'm not really expecting you to. You blame me and I blame the village. In the end, what does it matter? I didn't bring you here to convince you I'm right. I just want us to be friends again. You expect me to just forget everything and pretend it never happened. I could compel you to if I wanted. Hell, I could make you dance a jig if I wanted. But I won't. What would be the point? I already have tons of folk who kiss my ass and tell me whatever I want to hear. I want you to be you, Sasuke. There was no reason to bring you back if I didn't give you your free will. Sasuke stared up for a long while. Take that stupid mask off, I want to look at you face. You might not like what you see. I've sort of changed. I don't care. Fine, Naruto mumbled. Try not to get weirded out, okay? Naruto pulled down his hood and slid off the mask. Sasuke got a clear view. His eyes widened and gave a low whistle. Wow. You're even uglier than you used to be. Funny, maybe I will have you put on a show for everyone after all. Naruto's nose and mouth had stretched out into a snout. His eyes were red and slitted. The hair atop his head was still blonde and spiky, but the rest of his face and neck were covered in bright red fur. What happened to you, Dobe? I was constantly dealing with assassination attempts and ambushes. So I finally decided to just keep the Uchiha chakra active all the time. It protects me, but as you can see, there's a price. Naruto pulled off the glove on his right hand. Each finger ended in a claw. I even grew a tail. Sometimes if I catch a rabbit's scent I have an overwhelming urge to go hunt it down. I worry that someday I'll be with my men and suddenly go running off on all fours. Stop using the chakra then. Naruto gave a weary shake of his head. It's too late for that. I can't shut it off, my body has become dependent. Without the Uchiha chakra I'd die. There was a look of deep sadness on Sasuke's face. I'm sorry. A dead man pities me, is that really what I've come to? Don't be, there's nothing to be sorry about. Naruto quickly slid the glove back on. Then put the mask back and lifted his hood. Everything in life comes with a price, this is just part of it. There's more. Sasuke asked in disbelief. Naruto chuckled. A lot has happened since you died, Sasuke. Do you think you can forgive me and be friends with the most hated man in the whole world? If I say no, are you going to kill me? No. Sasuke considered it. The fact he was chained down to a table didn't appear to concern him. I want to see the village. Let me walk through Konoha and then decide. Fine. Naruto began to free him. Konoha had changed. Damage was scattered all across the village. There were broken windows and boarded up ones. Walls had sections of brick gouged out or holes punched through. Sasuke saw half a billboard advertising cola, the other half was completely gone. Entire blocks were nothing but rubble. You couldn't even tell where the original buildings had stood. A lot of the village didn't seem to have electricity. There were stores and apartment buildings open without a single light on. Even though it was the middle of the day, the streets were nearly empty. The people who were out walked with their eyes deliberately cast down and their shoulders hunched. They walked all the way over to one side or another. They did everything they could not to draw attention to themselves. As Sasuke went, he spotted a total of 11 patrols of Otonin in their black and white clothing. They had their heads up and were the only ones to use the middle of the streets. When one of their patrols went by, everyone else got as far away from them as they could. 7 of the patrols approached him, but they would spot something that would cause them to stop and reconsider. As Sasuke went, a handful of people appeared to recognize him. The usual reaction was for the person to quickly look away and hurry their steps. Sasuke felt he was about as welcome as the foreign ninja. The entire time he was out, he did not spot a single leaf nin. Naruto didn't like meetings. They always seemed like a waste of time to him. You sat around a table and had to listen to others drone on about things you usually didn't care about. His experience as Otokage had taught him to bear with it, they were a necessary evil at times. Fortunately, he didn't expect this one to take very long. It was the initial meeting of the new council. The old one had died along with their Hokage, with one exception. Hyuga Hanabi was 14 and trying very hard to fill out her chair. Her hands were resting on her lap and her chin was jutting up at an angle. It was a good effort at trying to appear regal and indifferent. It was too bad for her that her scent had a sour smell to it, nervousness and uncertainty mixed in with a healthy dose of fear. Except for himself and Tsunade, everyone at the meeting was afraid. Naruto didn't recognize any of the representatives from the clans. All the kids who'd been in the academy with him were dead. Most of them years dead. These were cousins or distant relatives who had survived, and come here to represent what was left of their clans. Hyuga, Akimichi, Aburame, Yamanaka, and Inyazuka were all in attendance. The seat for the Nara clan was empty. Apparently all the Naras who'd survived the battle had chosen to flee rather than surrender. Chances were the remaining members were already in Suna, hoping to continue the war. Naruto had ordered the family estate searched, but his Otonin had discovered nothing. The estate remained under surveillance. Thank you all for coming, Naruto got things underway. Having grown up here, I know how important the clans have always been to the village. I want them to continue to play a part in Konoha's future. As your new Hokage, I want your clans to continue to provide ninja as well as be a source of stability. Of course, there are going to need to be a few changes. The council members stirred slightly in their seats. None of them actually spoke. First off, the Lady Tsunade is appointed Vice Kage. When I leave Konoha, she will remain here and rule in my name. Tsunade shifted in her chair and rubbed her hands together. Naruto had known her long enough to know that meant she wanted a drink. Yamanaka Dita spoke. Pardon me, Hokage-sama. You won't be remaining with us. She was Ino's mother. Naruto had killed both Dita's husband and only child. Naruto realized she had every reason to hate him. But if he only accepted representatives who loved him, he doubted he could fill even one seat. Naruto gave her credit for sounding civil and keeping her face empty. But her scent gave the truth away. There was a burst of fragrant eagerness. He picked up the same from all the other members, the strongest from Hanbobby. Well, I can't really blame them if they hate my guts, just so long as they fear me. That's right. Once I feel the village is secure, I'll be leaving for Suna. Needless to say, I expect all of you to keep the peace. Naruto gave one of his not quite human chuckles. If the village tries to rebel once I'm gone, if I have to come back here and conquer it again, I promise none of you will enjoy it. Uncomfortable looks flashed between all of them. Were they already conspiring to betray him? Let me make something really clear. Naruto leaned back in his chair. The village surrendered to me, and all those still living here have sworn fealty. That means anyone who rebels against my authority is automatically guilty of treason. And I'm sure you all know what the penalty for treason is. I am certain no one present would contemplate any such action, Hokage-sama, Aburame Tenzu said. Like all the members of his clan, he wore dark sunglasses and spoke in a monotone. His scent was one of worry. Naruto couldn't tell if that was because they had been plotting something or just out of general concern for what he might do. Arigato, Tenzu-san, your reassurance puts my mind at ease. Naruto considered having Dita and Tenzu placed under arrest and handed over to the interrogators. There wasn't any evidence against either of them, but given what his life had been like, Naruto tended to see conspiracies everywhere. He supposed that would have made him paranoid, except for the fact that so many people really were out to get him. Next, Naruto continued. As a sign of my great interest in the clans, I want each of you to provide me with 5 members who are too young to have begun attendance at the academy. They will be relocated to Oto, where I will allow them to live at the palace and receive instruction from me on the various ninja arts. They'll remain with me until they achieve the rank of genin, at which point they'll be allowed to return home. My hope is that this program will help all of us to better understand one another. The stony stares told Naruto that none of them had bought a word of it. Inuzuka Kauta gripped his hands into fists and let a low growl exit his throat. You expect each of us to just hand over 5 children as hostages? I never used that word. Think of them as guests. And what happens to these guests when we do something you don't like? Naruto folded his hands in front of his masked face. Who knows? I suppose it would depend on how bad the offense is. But so long as you are loyal to me, there is nothing to worry about. And what will you do if we refuse to give you our children? Kauta snarled and bore his teeth. Beneath his mask, Naruto smiled. Usually all he ever dealt with was subterfuge and deceit. Everyone lied, everyone had hidden intentions, everyone schemed and plotted. Dealing with some good honest hatred was refreshing. Well, to start with, I'll kill you. Then I will send my ninja to your compound and they'll butcher every single person there. Ninja, civilians, servants, guests, everyone, hell, I'll have all your dogs killed too. Then I'll send out my hunter nins to track down and eliminate any person with a drop of Inuzuka blood in their veins. No matter where they hide, or how far they run, my people will find them and kill them. And when that's done, after I've killed every last person in your clan, I'll burn down your estate and piss on the ashes." Naruto never raised his voice as he spoke. The words were friendly and carefree. Inuzuka and the rest were staring back at him. "Does that answer your question, Kouta-san?" Inuzuka Kouta dry swallowed and answered in a whisper. "Yes." "Good. Next, the Hyuga caged bird seal is declared a forbidden jutsu. Anyone who activates it, or places it on a person is sentenced to death. Also, the cadet and main branches of the Hyuga clan are hereby dissolved. All members are to receive equal rights within the clan. Any member of the Hyuga who wishes to be emancipated from them will be allowed to leave them and to serve as a regular ninja." Hanabi's jaw dropped and her mouth hung open. "You cannot do that. And yet I have. What you are suggesting goes against all the traditions of my clan." Naruto gave an indifferent shrug. "I've never been big on tradition. My clan has been separated since before the village was founded. Some must lead, some must serve." "I agree," Naruto nodded. "You will serve me by making sure my order is obeyed. Oh, and I want at least 3 of the guests your clan gives me to be from the former cadet branch. But dash. Moving on. Next. Naruto laid out several more new laws, all of them aimed at stripping away some of the authority and privileges the clans had always enjoyed. Naruto intended them to be a source of ninja with unique bloodlines, and a symbol or unity and strength for the villagers and those living abroad. The council members understood exactly what he was doing, but there were no more objections. Perhaps they'd hoped he'd at least want them to be advisors, to influence some of his decisions. If so, Naruto made it clear that wasn't going to be their role. He would never trust any of them. The clans had all served Danzo faithfully, and had fought as hard as they could up until the moment they realized their only choices were surrender or death. They weren't his partners in ruling Konoha, they were servants, like everyone else in this village. When he finished giving them the new rules they would live by, he dismissed the council. "Hanabi-san, I want you to wait a moment." She froze as she rose from her seat. The others sent her looks of concern as they departed. Hanabi was quickly alone in the room with Naruto and Tsunade. "How may I serve you, Hokage-sama?" "I've taken up residence on the top floor of the tower. Your sister is there. Hinata wants to see you, go and pay her a visit." Hanabi sucked in a deep breath. Naruto could see her hands tremble just a bit. I really would rather not." I phrased it as a request to be polite, it's not. There was a long pause. What am I supposed to say to her? Tell her that you're happy to see her, that you've missed her, and that she looks wonderful. Lie. You're a ninja, surely you can manage that. Hanabi lowered her eyes and gave a single dispirited nod. "Hi, Hokage-sama." As she left, Hanabi's shoulders were slumped and her feet dragged. The moment the door closed, Tsunade sprang to her feet and rounded on Naruto. "Congratulations. I didn't think it was possible, but you've succeeded in making them hate you even more than they already did. So what? It's not like I could have ever made them love me. You could have tried to make a real peace with them. You could have at least started to heal all the old wounds. You're the medicnin, Grandma, not me." Naruto rose to his feet. "I don't fix things, I only destroy them." "What? You think I can fix this?" Her arms waved about. "I had a great reputation once, now I'm just a traitor. No one is going to listen to me. The only reason things are as peaceful as they are is because everyone is terrified of you. The moment you leave there'll be trouble. What exactly do you expect me to do?" "Handle it," Naruto said without an ounce of sympathy. "Remind people what I'll do if I have to come back here and put down a revolt. Ruling through terror isn't the best way, Naruto." "Maybe not, but we use the tools we have. How are Dan and Nawaki?" The question caused Tsunade to pause. "Need to remind me why I'm loyal to you, brat? I was wondering how they're adjusting to being back in the village. They don't like it, all they ever do is talk about how things were before. All that matters to them is the past. They won't change, they can't change." "I know," Naruto sounded forlorn. Tsunade rubbed her hands together. "I'm not complaining about it. In spite of everything, I'm still grateful to you. It's just, well, Tsunade struggled to explain it. It's like you're starving to death and all there is to eat is moldy bread. It's not what you want and the taste sickens you, but it's better than nothing. She gave an unhappy nod. That does sort of sum it up. Do your best. If things fall apart, the village will just get what they deserve. Naruto left. Damn, but I need a drink. Naruto didn't return to his quarters until evening. Ever since he'd left the Kyuubi's chakra always active, he'd found he didn't need to sleep anymore. Naruto tried to work for as many hours a day as possible. He even welcomed the mundane tasks like paperwork, so long as it kept his mind busy. The quiet hours of the night and early morning were the worst for him. When there was nothing to work on, nothing to distract him, he was forced to remember and think about the choices he'd made. Sometimes, when things were really quiet, he would hear the Kyuubi's voice, mocking him. Reminding him of his arrogance and his assumption that he would always figure a way out. Naruto had really believed that every problem could be smashed to bits if you only had a big enough hammer. He really had been an idiot. Life didn't work that way. Every choice you made had consequences, some you never even thought about. And if you did smash a problem into shards, those broken pieces had a nasty way of coming together again later to make a whole new problem. Even after all the things he'd done, all the crimes and deaths, Naruto still saw himself as the victim. Every horrible decision had an excuse he could point to. If the villagers hadn't hated him, if Iruka had been a good sensei, if the old man hadn't betrayed him, if he hadn't been forced to get rid of Orochimaru, if Danzo hadn't kept attacking him, if Jiraiya hadn't used the poison cloud, if Konoha had surrendered sooner, and on and on and on. Every decision he made had a justification, something he could point to. And look where all those choices had led him. He was Hokage and everyone acknowledged him. His power was absolute. Not one, but 2 ninja villages were his. He had all the money, power, and fame anyone could ever hope for. It was everything he'd dreamed of as a lonely orphan. It wasn't worth it, he thought. The price was too high. The door to his bedroom opened. How was your day, Naruto-kun? Are you coming to bed? Her scent was of ash and dust and of Tayuya's rotting corpse. There was nothing there of the real her anymore. He didn't turn around right away. He was looking out at the Hokage monument where 5 faces stared back. The night he abandoned the village, Naruto had destroyed Sarutobi's. It had been rebuilt, not by Sarutobi, but on Danzo's command after the old man was gone. Danzo claimed to have restored it to honor Sarutobi's memory and out of respect for the position of Hokage. Naruto wondered if his face would ever go up on the cliff. It didn't much matter to him one way or the other. I don't sleep anymore. I haven't for a long while. Oh, that's right, I keep forgetting. My sister came to see me today. I can't believe how much she'd grown. She seemed very nervous though, do you know why? Sighing, Naruto finally turned around. Hinata was wearing white robes with the Hyuga clan symbol. She was smiling at him and her lavender eyes were content. What Naruto focused on was the crack that ran from the corner of her left eye down to her chin. I have no idea, Hinata-chan. Chapter 43, End of the Path. When Danzo became the 5th Hokage, he'd had a single overriding priority, to kill Uzumaki Naruto. Danzo considered Naruto not only the worst traitor but the greatest threat the village had ever known. The 5th sent the best of the Black Ops to try and assassinate Naruto. Even the legendary Hatake Kakashi had been given the mission. They all failed. Though it was a stain on his personal, and the village's, reputation, Danzo turned to elite assassins of other villages. He even hired killers from the criminal organization Akatsuki. Danzo drained Konoha's treasury on assassination attempt after assassination attempt. But no matter what effort the Hokage made, Naruto refused to die. Eventually, Danzo accepted that no assassin or group of assassins would be able to eliminate Naruto. So he decided a different strategy was called for. The Hokage turned to the greatest living seal master and asked him to create a weapon of such destructive power that no one could hope to survive it. A weapon of mass destruction that could succeed where all his previous efforts had failed. Jiraiya was not happy with the Hokage's idea, but was forced to admit that Naruto was much too dangerous to be allowed to live. The Toad Sage could not come up with a better solution, and so ultimately agreed. And so the great Jiraiya had created the poison cloud, an ultimate jutsu that required the caster to sacrifice his life to use it. Jiraiya snuck into Oto and activated it. The village was smothered by a thick green fog. Anyone who breathed it in felt their lungs begin to burn. They were soon sprawled out gasping and choking as their airways became inflamed and closed. Some of the Otonin managed to escape, but the civilians never had a chance. The attack killed more than 40,000 people, the vast majority being ordinary villagers. It was a criminal act worse than anything Orochimaru or Naruto had ever committed. Naruto had been caught in the attack and breathed in the poison like so many others. But the Kyuubi wouldn't let him die. Even as his throat burned, the red chakra healed him and allowed him to survive. He hadn't been able to save anyone else. Hinata had died gasping for breath like so many others. I hope Jiraiya and Danzo are both burning in the deepest pit in hell right now, Naruto thought. When he'd first realized Hinata was interested in him, Naruto had planned to use her. She was supposed to be just another tool. With time though, he genuinely fell in love with her. She was the only purely good thing in his life. He couldn't bear to lose her and so had brought her back. At the beginning he pretended it was enough. She understood what had happened to her and accepted it. Hinata still loved him and could still use chakra. She was still always there at his side. Naruto tried to convince himself it was enough. But when he held her hand or kissed her, her flesh was always cold. Every breath was a reminder this wasn't really Hinata anymore. She didn't sleep, she didn't eat, and as time passed she tended to forget what she was. If he reminded her she would remember, but forget again in a day or so. Naruto had stopped reminding her, it only made her sad and didn't change anything. Are you hungry, Naruto-kun? I could make you something. No, it's all right. Are you sure? Yes. She paused and stood there. Most nights Hinata would spend her hours wandering the halls or staring out a window at the stars. Naruto usually avoided her during the nighttime. When he was alone with her during those hours, his instinct was to kiss her or hold her hand. The feel of her cold, lifeless skin made him ache. Sometimes he thought of ending the jutsu and letting her go. In many ways that would be the kindest thing. But if he did, he wouldn't be able to summon her back again. She really would be gone forever. Hinata began pressing her index fingers together and avoiding his gaze. Naruto-kun. There's something I want to ask you. What is it? Will we be staying in the village now? I love Oto, but this is home. You're Hokage and everyone acknowledges you. You've fulfilled your dream. Can we settle down now? I'm still at war with Suna. A lot of the Leaf Nin have gone there as refugees. I have to deal with them. All right. Then after Suna. Naruto rubbed his hands together and shifted his weight from one foot to another. After I destroy Suna, I doubt the other cages will feel very secure. I expect I'll have to go to war with them eventually. Then after you beat all the other ninja villages. There are still samurai and the daimyos. Then after them. Even if I conquer the elemental lands, I'm sure there will still be revolts and people trying to kill me. There is always someone to fight. Hinata lifted her gaze to look at him. But we'll be able to settle down and start our family someday, won't we? I want to be a mother, and I know you would be a wonderful father. No matter what people say, I know you have a kind heart. He breathed deep. Of course, Hinata-chan. We'll find peace and have a family. But not right now. When the time is right, we will absolutely have kids. You'll make a great mom. So, someday. Naruto nodded. Absolutely, but it won't be anytime soon. Hinata smiled at him. That's fine, Naruto-kun. I'll wait. She paused, but Naruto didn't say anything. Do you want to come up to the roof with me and look at the stars? I'd love to, but I have a lot of work I need to take care of. All right then. Hinata gave him a pleasant wave and left. Naruto headed to his office. He was determined to read every single report and fill out every last form. And if that wasn't enough, he would review personnel files until morning. When Sasuke finally returned to the Uchiha district, the main gate was shut. The hinges had started to rust. There were faded signs posted all along the perimeter that read, "This area off limits, by order of the Hokage." Sasuke supposed he shouldn't have been too surprised. Danzo always loved to play up the history and traditions of the village. It made sense he would choose to keep the Uchiha district intact, rather than allow people to buy up the property and actually live there. Danzo had never trusted his clan while it existed. Once the Uchiha were gone, he'd apparently loved them. Sasuke carried a stack of folders with him. Before coming here, he'd stopped by Umbu headquarters and visited the records office. He headed back to the small apartment where he'd lived. There was no electricity, but he'd kept a supply of candles. He was soon seated at his kitchen table going through the files. What he found was depressing, though not really shocking. Even before Naruto's arrival, the village had really gone to hell. So the report was true. Naruto brought you back. Welcome home, Sasuke. Sasuke looked up, startled. Shikamaru was standing in the doorway, leaning against the frame. Being dead has screwed up my senses. You never would have been able to surprise me like that before. Shikamaru slid out a cigarette and lit it. Don't be so sure, I can materialize any place with a big enough shadow. It's a terrific technique for spying missions or assassinations. Sasuke leaned back in his chair. That what you're here for? Come to assassinate me? That would be sort of a waste, since you're already dead. Anyway, you can't be killed, only sealed. We've had a lot of experience with Edo Tensei. I know, Sasuke waved at the folders in front of him. Those files are all marked top secret. It's okay, I have the Hokage's permission. Naruto's not Hokage. You want to tell him that? Shikamaru blew out a cloud of smoke. And just what sort of reading material do you have? Personnel files and mission reports. I wanted to see how many of my friends were still alive. But it looks like everyone except you and Sakura are dead. Sakura is probably dead too. She went to try and kill Naruto, right before your return. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. He'd hoped to talk to her. It was said to think Naruto was the last living member of Team 7. Your idea? No, hers. I told her not to bother. It would have been a better use of resources to try and gain his trust and spy on him. Naruto doesn't strike me as the trusting sort. He's not, but it still would have made a lot more sense than trying to kill him. If you didn't come to kill me, why are you here, Shikamaru? You know Naruto is looking for you. Yeah, now that the Hokage is dead, I'm his #1 priority. I try and see it as an honor, a really, really troublesome honor. Sasuke folded his hands in front of his face. What is it you want? To give you this. Shikamaru took a scroll from one of his jacket pouches and placed it on the table. Don't worry, it's not booby-trapped or anything. Sasuke snapped the wax seal under his thumb and unrolled it. He took a minute to read the kanji, then gave Shikamaru a sharp glare. How did you get this? The fifth acquired it. I never asked him where from. It was a tool to use against Naruto. For obvious reasons we couldn't deploy it. Until now. Sasuke let the scroll roll itself back up. You expect me to betray him? You can't betray someone who you don't owe any loyalty to. I am asking you to save this village, Sasuke. Fuck, I'm asking you to save the whole damn world. You're the only one who can now. You're the last chance we have. I'm not even sure this village is worth saving. I've read some of the mission logs. What Konoha did in Rice Country was just as bad as what Naruto did in Fire. Shika blew out another puff of smoke. So what? We were at war. We did whatever we had to slow him down. We're ninja, Sasuke, we are not nice people. If you read the mission reports from the Third Great Ninja War, I doubt they'll be much different. I'm pretty sure no one ever slaughtered 40,000 people in one go during the last war. Only because they couldn't manage it. Us, Earth, and Wind all wiped out enemy towns and farming communities. It wasn't because of intent, it was just a matter of scale. Do you want to know what I'm most sorry about when it comes to what happened in Oto? What? That we didn't kill 40,001. You're not much of a salesman. Hey, do you think I'm proud of what we did to the civilians in Oto and other places? I'm not. I'm not here to tell you we're the good guys in all this. I've been hip deep in blood since it started. There are no good guys here, Sasuke. But Konoha's still your home. Do you really want to see it destroyed? Naruto's already won, he's not going to destroy the village. He will unless we accept him as tyrant, and we won't. Most of the shinobi would sooner see the village burn than let Naruto turn us all into slaves. Maybe that's what the village deserves. Sasuke pulled one folder out of the stack. I know the truth about what happened during the Uchiha massacre. Itachi was ordered to betray the clan. Really? Don't pretend you don't know. I didn't. Why would I? I was a kid when that happened, remember? The same age as you. There was no reason why the Hokage would have told me about it later, I had no need to know. Why should I save this village when they destroyed my clan? Especially when there's not a single person I care about still living here. Shikamaru thought about it for a moment. I guess from your point of view maybe there isn't. I mean if you're going to blame the village as a whole for the Uchiha massacre. But what about everyone else? How about the village of Suna? They ever do anything to you? Naruto's not making any secret he intends to wipe them out. He's not interested in letting them surrender. And do you think it'll stop even then? Naruto has made the whole world his enemy. How many more thousands, hell, millions will he kill? You want me to kill my best friend? He betrayed and killed you, not much of a friend. Technically, Orochimaru killed me, and you, and Danzo betrayed me too. If you want to kill me for that go right ahead. But the fact is even if you don't give a damn about Konoha anymore do you at least still care about the whole world? You're the only one who can save it. Sasuke glanced at the scroll. By turning traitor, you'd only be betraying one man. To the rest of the world you'd be a hero. Isn't that how you want the last Uchiha to be remembered? Sasuke gave him a stony glare. Shikamaru finished his cigarette and dropped it on the kitchen floor. He stamped it out beneath his heel. Well, in any case, think about it. But not for too long. Naruto plans to set out for Suna soon. Shikamaru stepped back into the darkened living room and melted into the darkness. It was almost noon when Sasuke returned. He had a paper bag with him as he entered the tower. The Otonin permitted him to go straight into the Hokage's office. Naruto was seated behind his desk going through personnel files. Naruto looked up. I was starting to wonder if you were coming back. I had a lot to think about. Here. Sasuke placed the bag on the desk. Hope you haven't eaten yet. Ichiraku's? Wow, it's been a while. Teiuchi and Ayame are both still working there. I know, I checked on them as soon as the village was secure. I figured it was better if I not actually talk to them though. Naruto took the food out and stared at it. What are you waiting for? I can hear you drooling. I'd have to take my mask off. So? I don't have an appetite for you to spoil. Naruto hesitated a bit longer, but finally took off his mask and dug in. Sasuke sat across from him and watched. Hey, Sasuke said. You remember training for the finals of the Chunin exams? Kakashi brought us out so we could do some hardcore training as a team. Naruto chuckled between slurping ramen. Sure I do. Those were probably the hardest training sessions I've ever had in my life. Kakashi-sensei could actually be a real taskmaster when he wanted. I remember lying on the grass, looking up at the stars, being dog-tired. Just you, me, and Sakura. She said she was happy. That just being there as part of our team made her happy. Naruto gave a slow nod and swallowed what was in his mouth. I remember. Those were good times, all of us in Team 7 working together to reach our dreams. Tell me something, Naruto. At that time, before everything that happened at the finals, were you honestly happy? Yeah, I was. But even then I knew it couldn't last. I didn't have any plans to abandon the village, but I wanted to become Hokage and to make the people suffer. Why? Because of how I was treated all those years. Sarutobi was the only one I really cared about. I wanted to make him proud, but I wanted to make everyone else pay. I see. Sasuke sat there quietly until Naruto finished his food. Naruto downed the last noodles with vigor. That was good. I forgot just how much I love Ichiraku's. I know, I remember you told me once that as you were going to have a last meal you'd want it to be Ichiraku's ramen. Naruto's red eyes met Sasuke's, which were also red. The two old friends looked at one another in silence. You're Hokage now, Sasuke said. Isn't that enough for you? I always thought it would be, but it's not that simple. The stronger you are, the more desperate people are to bring you down. There's always one more enemy to fight, one more battle. You could stop. Naruto shook his head. I know there's no end to it, but it's not in me to quit. Naruto sagged in his chair. I'm tired, Sasuke, I'm sick of it. But I can't stand to let anyone beat me. Sasuke gave a single, solemn nod. I understand. With his Sharingan active, Sasuke used the clan technique Shikamaru had provided him. He reached out and suppressed all of the Kyuubi's chakra. The moment that happened, Naruto pitched face forward into his desk, knocking over the files. His body had come to depend on the red chakra. When it was suddenly cut off, all the strength left him. Naruto couldn't even lift his head. Sasuke stood over Naruto and took out a simple kunai. He stabbed down into his friend's neck. Naruto felt the sharp pain and tasted hot blood in his mouth. He struggled to breathe as his own blood drowned him. He wasn't afraid. He'd beaten them, he'd made them kneel. He'd won. He wondered if the old man would. In her quarters, Hinata felt a sudden weakness. She looked down and saw her hands and arms begin to crack and crumble. She remembered. Hinata closed her eyes and smiled. She remembered a young boy with a huge smile, and hoped wherever she went she would be with him. And that they would finally know peace. Sasuke reached down and closed his friend's eyes. As his body began to crumble, he waited to go back to the place he had been before. Goodbye. 3 months later. Shikamaru was in the Hokage's office, half buried in paperwork and smoking like a chimney. He was Hokage now in everything but title. Shikamaru absolutely did not want to become the 6th Hokage, but he was forced to wield authority in order to avoid total chaos within Konoha. Leaf had won the war. With Naruto's death, the Otonin had fled the village, knowing there was no chance they could hold it without the Otokage's power. Sasuke was a great hero and seen as the embodiment of the will of fire. There was a 10-foot-tall bronze statue of him next to the memorial. The traitors, like Tsunade, who had remained behind, had been dealt with. The refugees from Suna had been welcomed home and the Leaf village had started to rebuild. It should have been the beginning of a new and prosperous era. But no sooner had Naruto's corpse gone cold than the trouble started. The cadet branch Hyuga had declared themselves a separate clan and had occupied the Uchiha district. The main branch had tried to bring them back to the compound by force, resulting in bloodshed and casualties on both sides. Hanabi had come to a council meeting screaming that the village force the cadet members back. There was no support among the rest of the village for that, and Shika personally found the idea repulsive. Hanabi had then declared that if he and the rest of Konoha didn't help her restore her clan's rights, she would lead the main branch members to Iwa. There was no way Shikamaru could allow that. He found himself seriously considering the same sort of solution for the main branch that had been used on the Uchihas. Meanwhile, the reconstruction of the city was going slowly. The treasury was empty and no one was lending. The village was forced to decline a great many missions in order to keep a large reserve of ninja available for immediate deployment. Half the Leaf Nin had died fighting Naruto. Iwa had immediately made an alliance with Oto and begun some incursions along the border. They weren't in a state of war yet. But it was coming. Mist was going through a new round of purges. Lightning had declared war on Waterfall. Suna had terminated their alliance and begun snapping up many of the jobs Leaf had been forced to turn down. Many of the Leaf Nin who'd died had been their very best. Konoha's fighting power was a lot less than it had been. If a full-scale war with Iwa and Oto started, there was no guarantee they could win. The future was dark and there was no guarantee they would see the dawn. But we won, Shikamaru said out loud to the empty office. He lit another cigarette and got back to work. The end. That's it for part 5. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.